Yeah, John Grube from wildmantraining.com. I go on and on about society, and I'm going to keep beating it like a fucking dead horse. People are never going to pay attention. I've talked about this before. When I was growing up, I was lifting weights and taking martial arts before it was cool. I started taking martial arts in the late 70s, and I don't talk much about that type of training because it's really nobody's business. I don't like to talk too much about it. People that know me know that, I'm not untrained. Let's put it that way. And I do quite well, and I've always done well. Always been a good wrestler. Always actually been a good striker. But when I started doing these things, it was very few people doing it. It was rare to see that. Even when I was even taking karate and things like that, there was only a handful of kids in the class. Most everybody else was adults, and which was good because you got a lot of training time with adults. Now, a lot of people think, well, karate is so weak. There's no applicable to the streets. Well, yes and no. Because people that say that really don't have a fucking clue, or they never trained in the fucking 70s or early 80s. See, today, most martial arts schools are belt factories. And these belt factories you know of because when a kid's training for 2 years, he's 14 years old, and he's fucking got a fifth degree black belt in karate. It's a belt factory. When I took karate, I took it in a garage. Flooring, mirrors, no air conditioning, big fucking fan. I think it was $3 a night. I went 3-4 days a week. Pretty fucking reasonable. And it was pretty fucking hard. Okay? Most of these kids, they couldn't handle what happened the way we were trained. Like, I had my sensei come around and notice that when I was throwing my front punches, he noticed that my hand was open. He kept coming around, grabbing my fist and hitting it, keeping it closed. And I wasn't listening, so he went out to the parking lot and he grabbed some pebbles and put them in my hands. Made me punch the rest of the class, holding these rocks, these pebbles in my hands. And if I dropped any, for however many I dropped, I had 10 push-ups for each one I dropped. I didn't drop any. I learned a fucking lesson without fucking learning another lesson. And he would walk around back and forth, looking in the mirrors and looking at fucking us cheating, if we were going to cheat, usually kids. And we'd be in our front stance, which is basically an isometric stance. And to lessen the pain, you straighten up your leg a little bit. Well, he caught us doing it one time, and he sent us back to the class, and he made us all in the front stance. And the other kids in the class broke down, started crying. And that was one time my dad was actually at something, and he seen that I didn't fucking waver. I fucking took the pain. I took the fucking punishment. But, I learned a lot. I learned a lot of discipline and a lot about life and toughness. And I had occasionally we'd have classes come from, other schools come, and we'd spar. And I love sparring. I hated kata. I hated doing anything else, repetition. But I loved to be there when it was fucking spar night. And even as a kid, I loved it. And one time, I was sparring with a girl, and I was probably 11 years old. And their club had different belts, different colors. See, our school had 5 belts. It's white, green, purple, brown, and black. If you were a fucking black belt, you were there for fucking ever. Okay? Every time you tested, which was rare, your fucking Q would drop, which would put you closer to the next belt. So there was nobody that was a black belt that was fucking there under 10 fucking years. There's no fucking chance. So it was hard to get a black belt. It was tough to get out of fucking brown. Anyhow, so I'm sparring with this girl, and of course they say, take it easy. Back then, women didn't have fucking equal rights. So she's a girl, I'm old school, I'm 11. And my dad was at this one. This is, and we're sparring, and she kicks me in the face, and everybody's, woo, yeah, yeah. And I'm just, I'm trying to stay away. I don't want to hurt this girl because I really don't know. you know, she's older than me. I was told to take it easy on her by higher belts. And she kicked me in my balls. I spun with a spinning back kick, hit her in the fucking ribs, sent her across the fucking floor. She's out in the parking lot throwing up. I got angry. I was 11. Got kicked in the fucking balls. My dad said my eyes bugged out of my fucking head. Well, one of the instructors came to me and says, after class, I'm going to show you what it's like to be kicked like that. Now, he's an older guy. And I'm like, what the? Well, after class, I got a fist beaten. You know, I fought for my fucking life, basically. And, of course, he didn't want to destroy me. But, yeah, I took a pretty nice beating. But I fought back. He was another man. And so I think a lot of people get away from the lessons in karate. And I can tell you right now, man, if you took karate back then, I can tell you right now, you were above and beyond most people in the fucking streets. Okay? Because like I said, there was no geeks taking karate, really. I mean, if you look at all the old men that took karate back in the day, these guys were athletes. Okay? Not geeks. Not bullied kids usually. I mean, maybe. But they grew up to be pretty fucking athletic. And they were fucking tough. Because the training was tough. And when the training's fucking tough, you're tough. The problem is with kids today, when they go into training with karate or even fucking wrestling that I've heard lately, is that students want to be fucking coddled. The parents do not want their kids being fucking hurt. They do not want them being, their mind, they don't want them being upset. They don't want them to, you know, get the discipline. They don't want to give it to them. They take them to one of these places for discipline, but yet they don't want the club, the instructor, to discipline through training. And that's one of the things. And I was talking to a high school wrestling coach who was a pretty good wrestler in his day, and he stepped down. And I said, why? He goes, now this is a guy that trains with Olympic gold medal world champions. And he was saying, they don't want that culture here. They don't want that toughness. I was like, what the fuck does that mean? Wrestling's always been a blue-collar fucking tough sport. He says they just didn't want it. It was a whole different fucking culture. And this is up here in fucking Pennsylvania where wrestling's pretty fucking big. So that kind of tells you, even in places where wrestling and sports are big, parents are still wanting to baby their fucking kids. Hence why we fucking got a problem in this country today with fucking men and strength. But some people will say, well, you know, when you learn karate, you know, it's a false sense when you get out in the street. Well, you know what? I got to tell you, so is jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu's great one-on-one. Like when I was a bouncer, why, if I'm trying to throw somebody out, would I take a fucking guy on the floor where I could have fucking 10 guys kicking me in the fucking head? Okay? You want to stay the fuck up on your feet. Every expert will tell you, you don't want to be on your back in the street with your head inches from fucking pavement. You know, I'd rather be a fucking striker. Matter of fact, karate, people, you know, one of the things that I know I learned in karate, you know, is even though we did just front snap kicks and roundhouse kicks and didn't get crazy with the kicks so much, but those front snap kicks would keep somebody away from you. Okay? And back in the day, when somebody threw a kick at you, you're like, whoa, this guy fucking knows something. Because that's how it was. Like I told you before, if you go to a guy's house and you see his fucking heavy bag in the backyard and it's all fucking taped up and beat the fuck up, yeah, don't go in that fucking dude's yard and cause any trouble because you're going to get your ass kicked. You see, it's not like today where you could go out and buy a fucking bag on, over, online or anything. You know, people bought bags, they used their fucking bags. Because if they didn't use their bags, you'd fucking see it. They were fucking giving them away or they were just, well, if the fucking guy, you weren't buying used bags with fucking tape on them. So if a guy was beating a fucking bag and it's taped the fuck up, stay out of his fucking yard. Because you're probably looking for if you're going to get a fucking ass kicking. You know? And like I said back then, man, it was rare that anybody was trained. And, you know, in karate, they say, well, you know, you don't learn things. Well, I can tell you what I learned in karate. I learned punching fucking straight out, instead of coming fucking wide like every fucking buddy in the street does. You know? So you learn a lot of lessons in fucking karate and things of that nature. But people, you know, well, they got their own little thing. And, you know, cross-training is probably the best. But even so, man, you know, those things are only as good as somebody that don't fucking put a knife in your fucking chest or in your fucking gut or, you know, pull a gun and shoot you. but it's still nice to, be trained. Like my one grandson, he's 14. He's in 8th grade, going to 9th grade. He's a wrestler. My 7-year-old, one of my other grandson, he's 7. He trains 4 days a week. He trains 1 day a week in wrestling at a Olympic gold medal winners gym over here where we live. And right next door, he trains jiu-jitsu 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Okay? And I want him in there. I want him to experience the discipline that I experience, and I know because these are old schools. Okay? The guy teaching the jiu-jitsu is from Brazil. This guy's a world champion. And in the wrestling, also Olympic champions. So you're not going to not experience some fucking greatness and winning. Okay? There's none of that, bullshit. If and these parents know going in, hey, if you don't want your kid here, if your kid's going to cry, your kid's probably going to cry at some point. It's just the way it is. We're not just going to give him a belt. We're just not going to push him off. He's going to earn it. And that's why I take my one grandson every, 4 days a week. And I want to watch it. I love it. I love being around it. And I think that's a lot of things that people don't get. Men just aren't doing that. But even though men are training more than ever, men are in the gym more than ever, men are eating better than ever, this stuff's supposed to build confidence, yet the men are fucking quiet. They're still afraid to say anything. Still afraid to speak the fuck up. Still afraid to think on their own. Okay? They let everybody else, they let all social media fucking get in their head and say, oh yeah, well maybe that's okay. Well maybe that's okay. Well maybe that's okay. When deep down inside, you fucking don't like it, but you always have to qualify, well, not that I'm against it, but if you say, I'm not against it, but you're fucking against it. Just say you're fucking against it. Don't be afraid. Who gives a fuck? And if you don't want to say it and you work in a job like that, find another fucking job or just don't fucking say it and stay away from the fucking people that will fucking ask you these fucking questions. I'm just saying, man. There's ways out there men can be stronger. There's places out there that will help men, little boys, boys get stronger and grow into men. And, that's just what I'm going to keep pushing. You got to get out there. You got to fucking stay strong. You got to train. Do what you got to do to fucking keep ahead of the fucking game because it's a lot easier now, man. Fucking men and boys and men are just not fucking doing it. They're just fucking soft. So, hopefully I can help with the generation, my grandchildren, and help, push that up, and hopefully they can move on. If I can just help my grandsons at least. And then hopefully, they'll grow up and push their kids and, and to getting stronger. And I know it's not, I'm not going to be able to do it by myself. But, like I said, man, we get what we vote for. We get what we put up with. So, take care. Later.